the word go forth.
Fool me once.
Are you fired up?
I'm not a crook.
Are you ready to go?
Shame on you.
It's Abe Lincoln's Top Hat, hosted by Ben Kissel.
Fool me, can't get fooled again.
Oh my God.
You never know
You don't.
when you're going to have 3 Vatsos.
In an hour.
Yep. All right, welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Ben Kissel, joined by Marcus Parks, as always. Today's guest, National Review writer and Fox News contributor, Kat Timpf. Thanks for being here, Kat.
Oh, it's a wonderful time already.
Yeah. Let's see. So we should talk about Bernie Sanders. He was at a conference. He gave a speech at Netroots Nation, and it did not go so well at all because they don't like old white men. He got treated very poorly, and there was some protesters busted in the doors, and they started chanting the Black Lives Matter thing, and then Bernie was like, what do I do now? And then he freaked out and told him, literally, if you don't want me to be here, I can just leave. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Sort of the opposite of a Trump moment where he basks in the glory of having people hate him and throw sharp barbs his way. He loves to pick up those verbal grenades and throw them back into the crowd. Bernie Sanders literally just like, I can go. These are some of the differences between candidate Trump and candidate Sanders.
Chill vibes.
Right.
Yeah.
2 chill vibes, though.
Yeah, I guess, but I really hated in a lot of the coverage of this. They quoted all these people saying, the only thing for him to do would be get down there and join these protesters. I mean, what if every speech was like that?
Right.
Maybe he didn't talk about racial issues in that speech, but maybe that's not the speech that he wrote.
To discuss at the Netroots conference.
Yeah, like, sorry. I mean, I don't know. Do you have to mention every issue in every speech?
Right.
Well, he did somewhat address it. He said, Black lives, of course, matter. But I've spent 50 years of my life fighting for civil rights. If you don't want me to be here, that's okay. He was trying to be a little smart, because he's a bit of a smart ass.
Yes.
Like, if you don't want to be here, that's fine.
I'm okay. No, but it does come across as just like, I can go. Whenever you want me to go, I can just get right out of here. But how far do you think this organization is to the left if Bernie Sanders is too conservative to speak in front of them?
Exactly. You can't do anything right. You can't do anything right at all. I mean, what if... I also kind of wondered how much would he have had to say about it for them to not do that? Because they were probably so pumped to do that he'd be like, you didn't talk about the entire time, Because they went in there planning to, I mean, that's just kind of like what they do.
Right.
And if what would they do if someone did talk about it?
Well, of course,
would they be happy? I don't know.
This is sort of the catch-22 of the whole thing, right? Because Bernie Sanders went there. He actually gave a speech. Hillary didn't show up.
Right.
Most other candidates didn't show up. I believe Martin O'Malley also gave a speech, and that did not go perfectly for him, although Martin O'Malley has coming from Baltimore, being the mayor of Baltimore, and, of course, the governor of Maryland. He had a bit of a more diverse constituency than Bernie Sanders, who comes from Vermont, which is like, did you go to the beach and tan? You're like the blackest person here.
Right.
I can't believe. Are you part of the NAACP?
Well,
what happened?
Of course, Hillary didn't go.
Right. She's terrified of these sorts of events but what would be the benefit? If you were weighing the pros and cons and you're a political strategist, what is the possible pro to get a cheer from these people? It would require you to say things that would not be universally accepted in a nationwide campaign at all.
I feel like it was kind of like him doing a bringer show. Right? He needs to do anything he can.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of industry there. You know what I mean? To kind of get his face out. He's just saying yes to everything. And I think also because Hillary didn't do it, he was going to do it. Just like Hillary's not talking about anything. What is she doing? She's not in the news at all.
Right. I mean, does she need to be in the news? I would say that she probably doesn't. Her name recognition is pretty high.
She needs to not be in the news. I saw something on Jezebel about how her dad used to eat onion garlic sandwiches, and that's the only thing I've seen about her, covering the important things in her past that we need to discuss.
Katherine Timpf is very, very successful on Twitter. Follow her at Kat Timpf. And follow Marcus Parks at Marcus Parks. And I'm at Ben Kissel. There we go. Got that out of the way. Very good. But yes, there was an article written about Hillary Clinton in Jezebel. Only the the hardest hitting articles are coming from Jezebel
Yes.
when it comes to dealing with the policies that Bill and Hillary no doubt would like to continue to keep in place that her husband created in the 90s. And their whole article was about how she had a very tough father and he used to eat garlic with peanut butter.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So was that their measure of a tough man?
Well, it sort of was. And I mean, I read the article, and it was one of the first Jezebel articles I've read in a long time. I believe it was the most time I spent on that website since it first began, and I thought it was a smut site. But then it turns out it was not at all. I didn't masturbate for 3 weeks. I read a bunch of articles about what I was doing was wrong and how it is helping.
I don't. What are their staff Christmas parties like? I always wonder. What do they listen to? Nothing with words.
No, you can't.
They can't listen to anything with words because all words are problematic.
It's too possible to offend somebody. Yeah, the Jezebel Christmas party, it would be one of the very rare times where I'd say, you know what? I'm going to stay at home because I want to have a wilder time than going out. And I think just being alone on the couch watching Charlie Rose would be more exciting than the Jezebel Christmas party.
Yes.
So with Hillary not being in the news, with this happening with Bernie Sanders, where do you think he's going to be able to find some footing on the because obviously we'll talk about Trump because we have to, because the whole world is, and honestly, he's just unbelievable. I'm kind of voting for him. If the election was tomorrow, I think I would have to vote for President Trump. You know who he reminds me of is Lord Business from the Lego movie. The man who is voiced by Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
And I would look how great Legoland was. I mean, and things were doing great over there. There's a lot of structure and things like that. A lot of hotels being built. But where do you think for Bernie Sanders, from your perspective, where can he find a foothold? Because obviously he's not far enough left anymore to really capture the base that everyone thought he had cornered.
I guess. But if you look at his record, he was supporting getting the government out of marriage, gay marriage, that kind of stuff since the 1970s. And then Hillary, we have video, her saying it's so important to her that marriage is between a man and a woman. She doesn't just say, oh, this specific policy, is best for the country. She says, no, it's very important for the country.
As Hillary
but
Clinton.
He's not like that. But then also it's impossible for Hillary Clinton, for anybody to notice the fact that she's a total fraud. And that everything she's coming out in support of now, criminal justice reform, gay marriage, is what she was coming out against very hard.
Right.
Very hard.
Well, everybody
in the
knows.
90s.
Everybody knows marriage is between a man and a woman and a bimbo from Dallas and a random intern who's basically sexually assaulted by a man in power.
Right. And then my husband got all this money for all these new prisons. And then she's coming in out. She'd be like, there's just too many people in prison.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and Bernie Sanders has the credentials of being consistently progressive.
Right. So the National Review actually they got into a bit of hot water because of course Bernie Sanders he's a Jewish fellow, and they equated him because he does proclaim himself to be a national socialist. So there was a National Review article written by what was the name of this fella?
Kevin Williamson, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's not opposed to writing controversial articles.
No, he's most certainly not.
What was one of the other headlines that
Laverne Cox is not a woman.
That was the name.
was another piece that he wrote. He does not at all shy away from controversy.
Right. So National Review is basically calling Bernie Sanders a Nazi, which is obviously always a gross exaggeration. Nazis were Nazis, and they still live in Greece, but that's just because that whole country is chaotic and insane. And if you got a pair of boots, you're the ones who make the policies, because you got the way to get around. So the National Review calls him a Nazi. The far left doesn't like him because he's not on board with these relatively new movements, like the Black Lives Matter movement. How is Bernie Sanders, what is he, 72 years old?
Well, Bernie Sanders has been he marched with Martin Luther King.
Right, exactly.
He was in CORE protesting segregation.
Right.
He endorsed Jesse Jackson, for president. He has been a part of the...
That's what I'm saying with his record. He just isn't up on Twitter hashtags.
Right.
And neither is Hillary. Neither any of these people aren't.
And they're
Trump-
So what's he supposed to do? I also think there's these people looking at him and they don't know about the record and they just see a 72-year-old white pasty dude from Vermont.
Yeah. And he's also being criticized because the majority of his followers right now are white dudes.
Right.
And these days, that's a bad thing. You don't want the majority of your audience or the majority of your supporters to be white dudes. It's unfashionable.
Is it just that it's so much easier to be pissed off and find things that you have a problem with than to support somebody? Because, I kind of understand with the internet now, it's if you support somebody, inevitably there's going to be a headline, "We dug this up from the 90s and look at you, how dare you have said they were good." So it's very easy to say, yeah, well, you're not doing this and you're not doing this.
Right, and of course, and we talk about on the show regularly that Bill Clinton would never be elected nowadays. I mean, he is as Bill Cosby, drugged and sexually assaulted women. Bill Clinton did similar things, but
There's more
his drug
coming out about Bill Clinton too in the future.
I mean, Bill Clinton's,
sure.
his drug of choice was just great verbiage and just Southern charm, but nonetheless,
still just as intoxicating.
Manipulating Bill Clinton. And of course, with Hillary Clinton, she has 61% of the black vote. Bernie Sanders, only 9%. You mentioned earlier, prison industrial complex, how it increased under her under her husband's presidency. So why doesn't that narrative get traction?
Right. And it's not just that it increased under her husband's presidency. She went out of her way to make it very clear that she wasn't just the first lady. She totally felt him on this. She gave speeches saying, we've strengthened to manage. She helped him kind of steal the tough on crime thing from the Republicans during that time. She helped him do that, and she was very proud of it. She was bragging about all the prison money.
Right.
And the thing that's so strange with her, well, not strange because she apparently doesn't have to, she never explains how she made a shift. It might humanize her almost a little bit, I would think. She's just pretending that it never happened. Like, what does her time hop look like?
Yeah, they're just trying to find the perfect person that made her make the shift. I talked to a young man in Chicago, and he told me about how mandatory minimum sentencing destroyed his family and his father. Like, do you think she's just looking for the perfect narrative?
I don't think so. I think she doesn't think she's just trying to say as little as possible, and that's clear.
Why does she have to? If Jezebel, the publication that's supposed to know more and should investigate female candidates more because they should be more invested in getting one of them elected, is just printing articles about her father and garlic.
She's not likable at all. I mean, do you wish she were here right now?
I mean, kind of.
There's plenty of people that I don't agree with politically or that I even think are criminals.
Right.
I think, she's a thug, quite honestly.
Yeah.
She's a thug. But that's not even why I don't wish she were here, because she's also not interesting. Mm-hmm. How hard is it to be a thug and also boring? I don't know, but she somehow manages it.
Right. With the illegal things that her family has done with the Clinton, the foundation and collecting the money from, drug lords and warlords and NAFTA, which pretty much just guaranteed more slave labor than ever before in the world's history. And TPP will do the exact same thing. You would think she would have some good stories.
You would think she'd
Let's hear about some child armies that you guys funded.
Or she'd be able to tell a story.
Right.
It's so funny because Beyonce endorsed her or whatever, but you ever see them hanging out? You ever see her doing anything with pop culture? She knows just about as much pop culture as Bernie Sanders does.
Oh,
she just has a better social media team helping her pretend. Pantsuit aficionado in her bio. That's not her idea.
Right.
She's probably like, what's a Twitter?
Right. A Twitter is something that her husband gives to other women when he's having sex. I'm on fire.
I mean, if we remember, the only story that Hillary Clinton ever told turned out to be false. Remember the Bosnian sniper, the Bosnian machine gun fire story.
That's right. For those that don't know, just Google it. She said she was getting off a plane and the snipers were all around, and then they just have footage, and it could not have been a nicer day.
But most people don't know. That's why you're saying I have to Google it, because most people don't know, because somehow this Clinton machine is able to she's so obviously a criminal. She's so obviously a liar. She's so obviously a hypocrite, and nobody seems to care.
All right, but in all honesty, what are your thoughts on just the fact that she's a woman? This is good. Is this good, or do you care? I mean, Kat,
Very
you
interesting.
are a woman, Kat.
Yes, I
and
am.
obviously, this is a very big selling point. I think people often are just like, it's time for a woman to lead. I think that in their minds they have more of an Elizabeth Warren.
It's time for a woman to marry a president, stay with him when he cheats on her with an intern, and then become president. That's so feminist.
Right.
Come on.
So you don't buy that argument that
I
she's
don't
somehow
buy it
standing
at
up for
all.
all women?
So how is she a feminist automatically because she's a woman? How?
I don't know.
How is it?
She's gone through struggles. She broke through the glass
least
ceiling, the
feminist
senator.
by marrying a president and letting him hook up with interns and standing by him.
Well, you could argue that she was part of the political machine. She was part of the driving force that got Bill Clinton that far. They were definitely a power couple.
Regardless,
Right.
you're
Together.
saying you need to be a part of a power couple.
Right.
I don't think this is a feminist victory of any sort. I don't.
Do you think Lindsey Graham, he threw himself into the race? He's at 0% in the polls.
Oh, wait, I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham is down there. That's the sad thing.
Yeah.
And I read the news every day.
Yes, he's at 0%.
It's hard to keep up.
And let's transition a little bit out of the Democrats, and let's go to Lindsey Graham. He would be the first president to be non-married.
Yeah.
And I believe, I don't know, was there another non-married? I think there was one other president that was non-married. Do you think it would be smart for him to tout that a little bit? I love the idea.
I do too, of a single prez.
Single president, one focus on the mind, taking care of the entire country.
Yep. There's only one, James Buchanan, who was also considered by many historians to be our first gay president.
And okay.
There's been more than one.
Oh, gay presidents? Oh, yeah.
I'm not naming names. I'm just saying statistically, there must have been.
Many of them.
Yeah.
Many of them. But now Donald Trump was just in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham's backyard, and he gave a very boisterous and energetic Trump speech. Stump speeches should now just be called Trump speeches. And he ended up showing Lindsey Graham's telephone number. He showed the entire crowd his telephone number because Lindsey Graham called him a jackass. Mm-hmm. This is so fun. This is politics, like schoolyard politics happening at the national level. I feel like the Republicans are just dominating the press, and people are making it seem like it's a bad thing, but I think it's good.
Yeah, but the only one that's dominating is Trump.
Trump is viable.
Viable?
Yeah, I'm going to work in one of his casinos as soon as he gets elected.
The interesting
wash
thing
all the,
is Trump is just as wishy-washy as Hillary. He gave Hillary money.
When did he give Hillary money?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it must have been 2008,
I don't know
right?
the exact year. Yeah, it was. He was a Democrat donor.
Well, they did attend his wedding in 2005.
Well, that's okay. You can be friendsies with people that you don't agree with.
That must have been one hell of a wedding.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God, the pedophiles per
I was just gonna say no one's safe.
No one is safe. The amount of criminal masterminds at a Trump wedding. The Clintons are there. They're probably one of the least dangerous folks in the crowd. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that must have been. Hide your kids.
Yeah, Bill Clinton has contributed both to the Clinton Foundation and to Hillary Clinton's Senate campaigns.
Yeah, okay. Because I thought it was a while back from.
Yeah.
I mean. But no one's talking about that either, which is so interesting.
Right.
I do like one thing about Trump, and I don't know if I'll regret saying this or not, but I do like not apologizing if you don't mean it.
Right.
And I'm not even saying whether or not he should apologize or whether he said something, obviously some of the stuff he said is just like, come on, bro.
Well, so you're talking about the McCain reference, most likely, which kind of hurt him with a lot. Yeah, but the McCain reference hurt because it was
Republican veterans.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He just said, but it was such a funny. If you go back and you watch the question and response, it's very flippant, and he just says, "I like people who weren't captured," and it gets a huge applause break. All he is doing is getting positive feedback in the room. He's crushing everywhere he performs. He is destroying.
He's crushing exactly as a performer in a sense, but also, I mean, I really just believe he feels that way about himself. I talked about this on the Gutfeld show, and I was just saying, who is his therapist? Can I get this therapist, or can he be my therapist?
Or can I be his therapist?
But no, I would love that kind of delusional self-confidence where no matter how clearly totally wrong I am.
Right.
I'm like, nah, you have the problem, and I go on my merry way with a smile on my face.
And I think that's why he's doing well right now.
Right.
I think Americans are really liking that because so many Americans had the attitude of I say what I want. I do what I want, and people don't want to apologize when they don't mean it, and so they're really responding to Trump being a dickhead.
Or if they don't, they're secretly jealous of it. They secretly would love to be that free and
Right.
still love themselves, because that's what I think it's about too, is that people are sick. It's becoming hack that you have to hate yourself to be, and I'm not saying white privilege doesn't exist, but, the only way to be popular is to be the most guilty and upset about it.
Right.
Or to be
Sure.
being a victim makes you powerful, whether it's because you're a woman or because you're a minority or because your sexual orientation. Being a victim makes you powerful, and you're supposed to complain and tell sad stories. And Trump is like, nah, I'm amazing. I'm the best.
Right.
And you know what? That's crazy to even say, but that's new.
Right. A confident president. Sure.
That you're not the biggest victim, and that makes you the most powerful.
There was a post-ABC News poll that came out, and it put Scott Walker at 13%, Jeb Bush was at 12%, and Donald Trump was at 26%. He doubled up the closest competitor in Scott Walker, who I don't think has a lot of longevity anyway, but I think you're right. I think it's that message of just pure, unadulterated confidence that really comes in at a perfect time. Very similar. We've been talking a lot. If he does end up running third party, which he may have to do, he will be a perfect candidate to play the Ross Perot character of the so-called self-made man. We can get into a little bit of his Vietnam veteran. His Vietnam War experience was a lot different than John McCain's. And dare I say, I would prefer Trump's. If I had to choose two life paths, I would go with the Donald and just kind of hang out.
I'm not going to war.
No,
but
never.
I'm a woman. But I don't know why. Oh my gosh, war! That'd be so scary.
War would be awful. You got to watch this.
Die.
There's a great documentary called The Battle of Marjar, and it really shows you what the war was in 2010 Afghanistan. It's terrifying, awful, and those bullets they're super real, and they just go right through you and they kill you.
You know what I'm surprised by? I mean, all 9 million of the candidates that have announced, they're clearly getting overshadowed by Trump. I'm a little surprised Rubio's not talking that much. And isn't he supposed to be the charming one?
Well, Marco Rubio, his major thing now is he's gone against his super PAC is giving, I believe it's $20 million in funding or something like that to an ad campaign going against Obama's Iran deal. So he kind of want to make that the cornerstone of his campaign, which I think will get some traction a little bit longer down the road after Congress, after they get back from their month break. They're just taking August off.
I want to see a presidential candidate that's good at riffing.
Right.
Something comes up, they know what to say about Trump. I want to see because I don't know, just because I like it, but also I feel like you shouldn't be that like sneaky and quiet, and especially when you're coming up against someone like Trump, you do need press right now.
Right.
And whether it's Trump or anything else that comes up, you need to be able to address that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Rubio is just waiting.
I think
because the first Republican presidential debate is coming up 2-3 weeks, August 6th, and it's going to be 10 people on stage. Right now you got Trump, Bush, Scott Walker, Marco Rubio, Ron Paul, Ben Carson, Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, Chris Christie, and Rick Perry. Now that is a fucking murderer's row right there.
I'm disappointed. I really do like Carly Fiorina.
Yeah?
I mean, I kind of like the way that she talks about abortion because she's super pro-life, but she's like, not everyone's pro-life or pro-choice. She talks about how, like, the Democrat side, like, look at how extreme that they are. Like, their platform is like, if it's not out of your body, you know what I mean? Like, stuff like that is interesting. She's interesting. I'm saying she's interesting. Ben Carson, I don't know how he's there.
He's sitting at 6%, and Fiorina is sitting at 0.8.
I know, and that doesn't make sense to me, because I would really just like to see her, how she'd be treated in the press as a female candidate versus Hillary if she was getting more.
She doesn't have a lot of traction. I think it's mostly because everything she's tried to do in her life, she's failed at. She was a terrible CEO, and then of course she
had
wasn't.
breast cancer when she was running for office.
So what? I have to vote for her now?
I'm just saying.
If she was smart, she should talk about.
Terminal illnesses are a big bummer.
Yes, that is very, very true.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, when you go through that list, the Republicans with the single Lindsey Graham, Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina, and Donald Trump, it's the most diverse in a lot of ways when it comes to wealth, class, race, and gender. It's much more diverse than what the Democrats are doing right now. And I would say, much like a lot of people thought that the first black president would have to be Republican, that's why they wanted Colin Powell to run in 92. They were just like begging, was it 88 or 96, something like this?
96.
They were begging him to run. They literally had a Time magazine had a cover be like, "Will you run?" It was just pathetic. It was amazing. I mean, I think he would have been a fine president. Who knows? But with Donald Trump, I think he would be the first atheist president. Have you ever heard him talk about religion?
No.
He
The
says
first openly atheist president.
well, he's sort of
All presidents, most of them, I'm sure, are atheists.
Right. There was the person asked him about like what his relationship was with Jesus, which is like insane that this is even talked about in 2015. But and he said, do you ever ask for forgiveness? And he said no. He just tries to do better. And I thought that was a great response.
He said, "I'm not sure if I have."
Yeah, no, he hasn't. And then he talks about how the most religious thing he does is go and have the wine every now and again. He just, he's just talking about it from a booze perspective.
Yeah, he said, I take when we go and church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker. I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness, and I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed, okay?
See, that's the difference. That's the difference between him and Hillary.
Right.
Don't you absolutely wish he were here?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
When the Donald's here, we're all rich.
The Donald's here, and you're going to laugh.
Right.
With TV and with the internet, especially these little one-sentence things, his Twitter, hilarious.
Mm-hmm. But it's also the Bush Gore thing. It's like Bush is the guy whose barbecue you want to go to,
Yes.
and Gore is the neighbor that ropes you into uncomfortable conversations when you go to get the mail.
I'm not going to lie. I wish W were here also.
Yeah.
Do you think, W in the polls is above 50%, which is pretty astounding. Because when he was leaving office, I thought for sure that he was going to be never again above 20, 25,
Right,
30%.
obviously, in the war, that's what I'm saying. Like war in Iraq, obviously everyone agrees. Most everyone agrees. Huge mistake.
Right.
However, I do want to give him a hug.
Right. He draws pictures of dogs.
do wanna
But what does
give
that
him
mean?
a
What are we voting for? How are we voting now in this country?
Yeah.
Is it just gonna be is it enough to be a reality show contestant?
Yes, it can be, because you know what? We are interested in politics, okay?
Right.
Most people are not. What's easier to say, oh, who do you like and who doesn't hate gay people the most? Or let me actually research how the economy works and what's been going on in the Middle East. Nobody wants to do that. I mean,
Right.
I do it as my job. So I have
You get paid to do it.
I get paid to do it.
And most people don't.
And they don't. And most people, it's not only that I get paid to do it, it's that most people would be doing whatever else they are doing for their job all day. And then so maybe they get home from looking at spreadsheets or waiting tables or whatever it is, and they don't want to read about Iraq and look at they should, because it matters.
Right.
But, people don't want to do that. Who's the most likable? Who's up on the cool stuff that it's
Right.
really that simple for a lot of people.
But now, isn't this the number one thing going against Hillary? She is a woman, but her likability is insanely low. Her approval ratings when it comes to just like, do you want to hang, like you were just mentioning, do you want her around you, is like zero.
If she showed up to one of my parties, I would be like, what are you going to add? You're just going to be like, I feel like she'd be standing in the corner with the cheese, like, not that that's bad. I mean, that's also me, but just like she wouldn't know how to talk to anybody.
Right.
Like, what is she going to do? Have somebody write a statement every time she wants to have a conversation with somebody? She doesn't talk. She doesn't have conversations.
Marcus, when you were obviously, you were just in New Mexico. Trump was running then, and we discussed a little bit about the immigration, because that was when he made the inflammatory remarks. I mean, about immigration. If he just continues to make another inflammatory remark after an inflammatory remark, I think it gets rid of the first one. So now we're on to McCain. So now we're just on to the fact that that he hates, people who are captured at war, even though the Obama administration has done a fairly terrible job of getting the people out of Iran right now that Donald promises he'd get out. And am I buying this too much? Am I buying it hook, line, and sinker? I kind of believe that him and Putin would like solve everything.
Well, so yes, you are, but he is a very likable person.
In his own unlikable
despite
way.
His hate, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is, as far as following politics, what you were talking about, as far as, you following politics because of your job.
Right.
And us also just following it in general because we like it. I think that there's so much to know now and so much to follow, is that following politics is no longer a part of everyday life. And in an American, following politics is a hobby. Like, it's something that
most people, yeah.
Yeah, for most people, if you're really into politics, that is your hobby. That is one thing that you do. You follow politics and you go online and you argue about it. Most people don't. They're just so much to know. Yeah, politics has become like sports. Yeah.
And they also get very upset. Politics are often too inflammatory. The dialogue becomes like super mean-spirited. They're like, I hope your dog dies. And you're like, we just disagreed about, seatbelt laws. What is happening?
Yeah, I also think a lot of people who are into politics supposedly are pretending to be into politics.
Right.
Like they read headlines only.
Mm-hmm. On July 4th, some of our friends were having a political discussion, and it's great. I love when people have political discussions. I rarely throw myself into them, especially when they just start being like, but I do think that we need a distribution of wealth, and everyone needs to pay their fair share. If I hear somebody utter the sentence, people need to pay their fair share in a political conversation, I'm like, oh no, you're just regurgitating a line that was written by an intern that the president ran on to get your brain thinking that this is something that is even a rational, reasonable idea. What would wealth distribution even look like from a policy perspective? Do you go and loot the homes of the wealthy and give it to the poor? What does Donald, on the inverse of that, what does Donald Trump's immigration policy look like if you would actually... What is it on the ground? You go and you just
build a wall.
He wants to build a wall, which that's like it's a fun, cute idea. But then would you just go to houses in San Francisco and just gut the homes of the families? What is that going to look like?
Root them out.
You root them out like a truffle hog, but they're humans.
I
not
think
pieces of, not chocolate.
What's interesting is that nobody would say that they want that, but you don't have to. He can say that, and you can just secretly kind of vote for him if that's what you want.
Right. So what do you think are some of the more distracting things now? I was just reading about cisgender. I am cisgender. You're cisgender too, Marcus.
Yeah, I know.
And you are too, Kat.
I'm indeed cisgender.
You non-creative losers.
I know.
Cisgender makes me feel dirty. I don't know why.
I don't know what it is.
I don't like it. It makes me feel like a mutant or something.
Well, I identify as Ben. That's what I've always said. I don't know.
I don't identify as Marcus. Yeah.
So, you should tweet that. I'll retweet it.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
So, what are some of the? Because for the National Review, we were talking about how you find your articles, and you find a lot of amazing articles that tend to, because it's the National Review, you make fun of a lot of the more left-leaning university types.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you feel like these are the distractions that are happening? You mentioned sports. I think sports is also one of them. But on more like for people who feel as if they're socially engaged, I think oftentimes they can kind of take the B route and not worry about policy and just focus on gender and like you were saying, who is more tolerant than the other person.
Right, and that's so annoying. Especially when they implode on each other, like identity politics, like what I was telling you about. Like what happened with Bernie
Sanders.
Or like what I was telling you about yesterday about, well, this wasn't, this was in Scotland, but the Pride Festival,
right.
There was transgender individuals that thought drag queens were offensive. So they're like, you know what? No drag performances at this festival. But then transgender drag queens were like, what about us? We want to perform. We are transgender. So then they're like, okay, transgender drag queens only. Then all the cisgender like, why are you making us say what gender we are specifically? So, I mean, maybe it's just not possible to create any environment, even one where people have as much in common as a Pride Festival, let alone a country or a university, to not create any environment where you can guarantee that people won't feel uncomfortable. Let's all just shut up and move on.
Right. And of course, the concern of people being offended. But as opposed to, how Bernie reacted to the chants of Black Lives Matter and be like, I can go. Donald Trump, who I think resonates that sort of the same sympathy as you have towards people just being like, live in it. Live in the people being upset and hurling insults at you and figure out how to insult them back. And Donald Trump is doing that, which I think that's sort of what he is playing to.
I don't understand when people, complain about. I love when people insult me because I'm so good at insulting them back.
Right.
And then it's not mean.
It's kind of fun. It allows you to do whatever you want. It allows you to say whatever you want to say.
But now we've gotten to this point, which is what I was saying earlier, where the one who's wounded is always the winner, because and that's not how evolution works.
Right.
Sorry.
What are some other articles you've been working on? I know you were telling me one about vampires.
Yeah, there's a sociologist who's coming out and saying that we need to respect people if they come out as vampires, Did
you read about this, Marcus?
Yeah. And everyone, I got.
I love this one though.
Yeah.
I got
I've done a fair amount of study on clinical vampirism.
I got emails from transgender individuals being like, "This isn't funny. Why are you mocking me?" It's like, yo, this is not a satire.
Right.
I'm not the one you need to talk to about this.
Oh, they thought that it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
They thought that it was. They thought that I thought this was funny. Like, how dare you compare? I was like, I'm not. And
so this is a university professor teaching this in his curriculum or her curriculum.
He did a study based on 11 people.
Okay.
And they
well, to be fair, there's not a whole lot of people out there with clinical vampirism.
Correct. and some of them got their he drew a distinction between a lifestyle vampire, which is someone who just like wears fangs and sleeps in a coffin, and I say just because the second one's weirder, which is somebody who thinks they need to get extra energy from a person, whether it's psychic energy, I don't know how you do that, or literally drinking blood from a person or a creature.
Marcus, any insight on the psychic energy? How do you get it?
Psychic energy is it's a whole different show, but it is essentially using your psychic powers to leech the come back. Yeah, come back. Like I said, we would need Henry here for the psychic vampire conversation.
It was interesting. He was saying none of these people showed any signs of being psychologically disturbed. I would argue drinking blood psychologically disturbed. At least there's an argument for that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, doesn't it by definition hurt somebody else, or how do you do it? Is there a letting process?
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's the same as giving blood. If someone volunteers, yeah, it's consensual.
So no judgies, no judgies in terms of like that shouldn't be illegal, whatever. Yeah. I'm allowed to call you weird.
You're right.
Okay.
Or a good friend. Or come to our last podcast on the Left Live show.
Yeah.
This Saturday, the 25th. I really have no problem with vampires, but let's not go down the slippery slope of making them a protected class.
I read something today too about people who identify as animals. They feel like they're wolves. They have
otherkin.
Tails. Otherkin. Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of.
So where does it? So okay. So this is the
I'm allowed to think you're weird if you think you're a wolf and you're a human being.
Kat, you would be a cute wolf.
I absolutely would.
Yeah, Marcus, you're a I don't even know.
Coyote.
Yeah, definitely a coyote.
Yeah, I'm a little trickster.
Yeah. And obviously I have to be like a bear or something. But bears are fun. And they like pie. And so do I. And I love
you'd be like
too.
A cartoon bear. But like a drunk one.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, you got any booze? No, you don't? I'll kill you then.
Boozy bear. Big boozy bear Kissel.
That's so cute. But because of the left movement being, I think, really fractured and kind of like muddy, it's like muddy ground. It's like a quicksand now because like you were saying, no one wants to offend anybody else, and it's almost impossible to create a world or an environment where everyone is saying the right things. It's really the definition of walking on eggshells. As opposed to the Republicans who have somebody like Donald Trump, who he's getting rewarded for saying terrible things about immigrants because to the base of that party, even if they don't agree with him necessarily, they don't mind it.
They're relieved by the fact that someone's able to say that.
Right.
And I think they agree with him.
I mean, I agree.
I think that's what people aren't talking about here is that a lot of knowing. Okay, you mentioned me going back to the South recently, to Texas and New Mexico. Let me tell you this: the racism in the South against black people has totally been replaced with racism towards Mexican people. Okay. Like it is completely like you want to talk about the number one racism in Texas right now. It is absolutely Mexican.
You don't think it's Muslim Americans or anything like that? None.
absolutely not.
Because I
no,
think
it is
they see,
absolutely is number one Mexican.
They see it as a welfare issue, anchor babies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like a whole different animal, I think. I mean, you could say replace, but I think it's a different animal.
I mean, it's a welfare issue, but it's also the biggest one that I really hear is crime.
Yeah.
Like the crime is the biggest issue that they bring up again and again is crime when they talk about Mexicans.
Do you think it's possible for one more election cycle to be able to win the presidency without getting a strong support from pockets of the minority vote?
No. I don't know.
Because back, like the Reagan coalition, that was a religious coalition. That was an economic coalition of wealthier people, capitalists, more corporate-minded people, and then Americans who were middle-class whites. Mm-hmm. But pretty much the demo was Caucasian. He did not get a lot of any sort of brown people to vote for him, except for occasionally some blacks who were also evangelical.
Yeah.
But now you have. Is it possible now to ever be able to run a campaign that just gears towards whites?
No, because then even the whites are gonna hate ya.
Right.
Because then white people call out racism just as much as anybody else. Like they get offended for others.
Yeah, but
white people are super into that.
But once they go to that ballot box by themselves, though.
That's true.
Like, are they going to vote their conscience or are they going to vote their lizard brain?
Yeah, maybe themselves, but they're at least going to go out there. The white academics are very vocal about how racist all the other white people are and how sorry they are.
But that's another thing that I really think about sometimes is that we are on social media, so we see this stuff daily. How many people aren't on social media? Are the people that actually vote the ones who don't know that a white professor from Tulane is complaining about institutional racism?
Also, there's nothing really more institutionally racist than the university system. And a lot of people, like Scott Walker, he's number 2 in the majority of polls, doesn't have a college degree, and in a bizarre way, that's working for him.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a backlash of, I think mostly pseudo-intellectualism, but it's definitely ivory tower white thought that is just like, I don't know, bro. Like
a college degree doesn't always mean anything.
It means nothing because now you can just create your own major. I could do a major in like how to tie my shoes because I got big feet, and it's more difficult than I could get like a master's
Sorry
degree.
for you.
They're size 14s.
It's big.
It's sad, but either way. So it's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of things that are coming out in the political minds of people, and they're channeling it through Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is really relating to a lot of folks, and I think people are completely stunned by it. But in reality, if you can't stand up to Trump, I think he's like the measuring stick for a candidate to see how they're going to do with diplomacy.
You can't be more interesting than somebody who doesn't care what they say.
Right.
And you can't. You kind of can't not care what you say. So I really wonder what's going to happen if you're going to be like that legitimate.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, do you want his finger over the button? Nah.
Yeah, but do you think that the majority of Americans, the people that respond to Trump's anti-immigrant statements are people who don't think that there are any immigrants besides Mexicans. Yeah. They don't think about foreign policy. They don't think about what happens outside of North America.
Either way, quick prediction, I'm saying it's going to be a Biden-Romney election. You heard it here first, folks.
Romney would crush it right now.
I think he would too.
Yeah?
He should have decided to announce right after all that China stuff came out. Been like, told you guys.
I would not be surprised if Joe Biden throws his name in the hat. But starting in January. He can't,
I wish he were here.
I wish if Joe was here, although he's sad. Joe is sad.
He's sad, but in a fun way.
We could talk about death.
Yeah, like everyone is his whole family dead.
Yeah,
I know. Why is mine?
I don't know.
That is true. But you know what? I figured he'd have a good sense of humor about it.
Yeah, and so do I. You gotta. You're not getting out of bed.
You got to.
I don't know what that accent was.
You have to have a good sense of humor about all of this stuff. Because at the end of the day, we're already underground. So we're just going to try to have
Slowly
fun.
dying, all of us.
That's right. And stop heckling Bernie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just an old guy.
He's an old guy, and I really do think he loves people. He's an idiot, nothing that he says would ever work.
You don't think so?
No.
What's the dumbest thing about Bernie Sanders?
Well, like you said, redistributing wealth.
Well, how does it look like in a policy form? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is difficult. I mean, I don't know how you do it.
But is it that he's going in with these extreme ideals and then going in, it's like, okay, well, let's reshape this?
I honestly liked him when I met him. I really did. And I do like his views on a lot of stuff, like the criminal justice type stuff.
You got to meet him. You were doing Larry Wilmore's The Nightly Show, and Bernie Sanders tentatively announced his run for the presidency.
Yeah.
But it was really kind of like, I'm thinking if people like me, I think I might run. Like, that's really what he said.
I honestly, I mean, I wonder what kind of conversations the Clintons have about Bernie Sanders.
I mean, they must love him. I can't imagine they feel too threatened by him.
Yeah, they don't. But what if he ran as a third-party candidate?
Do you think that he would?
I don't know. I can't see it.
What if we had a Trump, Bernie Sanders, Hillary, and Jeb Bush?
Yeah.
What happens then?
I don't know, but I just think this is going to be great.
Yeah.
It's so hilarious already, and there's so much more hilarity to come.
I mean, that would be a real fun four-way debate there.
And God bless our country.
We're all so doomed.
Yeah, but you have to say it in the way that after the president announces that there's a nuclear war coming, and God bless the United States of America.
Amen.
That's right before I suit up in an airplane and I go up to the moon and I blow it up. That's how this action movie ends.
All right, Newt.
I wish I knew how to make an air horn sound.
Yeah. All right. Biden Romney 2016. That's who's going to be going at it. Bold predictions. Thank you so much for being here, Kat Timpf.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine.
Find her on Twitter at Kat Timpf.
You probably already follow me.
Yeah, she has a lot of followers. Follow me on Twitter at Ben Kissel. I need to get that Twitter score up. And I'll be back on Red Eye August 3rd. Follow Marcus Parks on Twitter at Marcus Parks. And you are always
watch
doing
my show.
Yes, you were always doing shows on Fox News.
Yeah, the Greg Gutfeld show every Sunday night at 10 p.m. It's super weird and wonderful. Just
It
like
is.
me
That's great.
and Greg.
That's right. And you can see if you just randomly watch Fox, odds are you'll see Kat at some point during the day. And
My grandmother was very impressed that I knew someone on Fox.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did she know who I was or no?
She just liked to hear that I knew someone on Fox. I think it
Nice.
made her respect me more.
What's her fave shows?
Oh, it's just
All of
on
them?
all the time.
She probably does. I mean, I'm the blonde glasses.
I guarantee you she's seen you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw.
Lou Dobbs? Lou Dobbs?
Yes, I know Lou Dobbs' grandma.
Lou Dobbs. I like Lou Dobbs.
I love Lou.
He's a great actor. He's
is
done
he?
like little sketches for the Gutfeld show. They're hilarious. Everybody needs to watch them.
Talented guy. All right, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.